When my son's wife told me to leave the house, I smiled instead of crying. Not because it did not hurt, but because I had already learned how to hide pain quietly. I still remember the way she stood near the door. Her hands were folded. Her voice was soft, almost polite. "Baba, it will be better if you stay with your sister for some time." She did not look angry. She did not shout. That made it hurt even more. I nodded slowly, as if I agreed. Inside, something cracked. Not loudly. Just a small, tired sound. I picked up my old bag. The same bag I once carried to my first job. The same bag I used when my children were born, filled with sweets and dreams. As I stepped outside, I noticed the door closing behind me. Not slammed, just gently shut. And in that soft sound, I realized something important. My family had been hiding the truth from me for a long time. I am a simple man. I worked most of my life with my hands. I believed that if you stay honest, if you love your family, life will stay fair. I was wrong. But this story is not about blame. It is about silence. The kind of silence that grows slowly inside a home. I used to believe my house was full of warmth. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise. I made tea in the small kitchen. The kettle always made the same soft sound. My wife would sit near the window. She did not speak much in the mornings. She just held a cup with both hands and looked outside. Our son lived with us. He was our only child. Quiet, responsible, and kind. At least, that is what I believed. When he got married, the house changed. Not suddenly, but little by little. His wife came with her own habits, her own ways. I respected that. I told myself, a new woman needs time. So I stayed silent. At the dining table, conversations became shorter. Sometimes they stopped completely. I would ask simple questions. How was your day? Did you eat? The answers were polite but distant. Yes, Baba. It was fine. No stories and no laughter. At first, I thought it was age. Maybe I was becoming boring. Maybe young people just had different worlds. So I smiled. I ate quietly. I did not complain. My wife started going to her sister's house more often. She said it helped her feel better. I believed her. I trusted her words the way I always had. Some evenings, I sat alone in the living room. The television was on, but I did not watch it. I just listened to the sounds of the house. Footsteps. Doors opening and closing. Low voices from the bedroom. They stopped talking when I entered. That silence followed me like a shadow. I began to notice small things. My medicines were moved without asking me. My chair was shifted from its usual place. One day, my son said, "Baba, don't sit there. It blocks the way." I moved immediately. I did not argue. I told myself, they are busy. Life is hard. Don't be sensitive. I trusted my family. That was my biggest weakness. I did not know they were making decisions without me. About me. They spoke in whispers. They looked at each other before answering my questions. When I asked about my wife, they said, "She is fine." When I asked about money, they said, "Don't worry." But worry had already found a place in my chest. One afternoon, I found an envelope in the kitchen drawer. My name was written on it. The handwriting was not familiar. Before I could open it, my daughter-in-law came in. She gently took it from my hands. "It's nothing important, Baba," she said. "Just old papers." I nodded. I always nodded. That night, I could not sleep, not because of pain in my body, but because of fear in my heart. Fear of being unnecessary. I remembered my younger days. How I worked late hours. How I missed meals so my son could eat better. I remembered holding him when he had fever. I remembered teaching him how to ride a bicycle. I never thought I would become a problem in his life. But life does not always follow our hopes. One evening, rain started falling softly. The sky was gray. The house felt small, than usual. I heard my name from the bedroom. Not called. Discussed. My son said, "We need to decide soon." My daughter-in-law replied, "Yes." He doesn't need to know everything. I stood still. The rain outside became louder. My hands trembled, but I did not move. That was the moment I understood. There was a truth being hidden from me, and everyone I loved was part of it. Still, I said nothing, because I believed silence could protect love.
I was wrong again.
Days passed. My wife did not return. My son avoided my eyes. The house felt like a place where I was only allowed to exist quietly. Then one morning, my daughter-in-law spoke.
Her voice was calm, prepared.
That is when she told me to leave.
Not forever, she said.
Just for some time. I smiled. I packed my bag, and I walked out without asking the one question burning inside me. I went to my sister's house with my small bag in my hand. She welcomed me kindly. She did not ask many questions. That made me feel safe. But safety does not remove pain. It only gives pain a quiet place to sit. At night, when everyone slept, I lay awake. I stared at the ceiling fan. Its slow movement reminded me of time passing. I kept thinking about my house, my chair, my kitchen, my family. I wondered how easily they let me go. The next morning, my sister made tea for me. She placed the cup in front of me gently. "You'll feel better in a few days," she said. I nodded. I was tired of nodding. She did not know the truth, and I did not want to tell her. If I spoke, the pain would become real. Days passed slowly. My son called once. Just once. "Baba, are you okay?" "Yes," I replied. "I am fine." That word again. Fine. He did not ask more. He did not say when I could return. The call ended quickly. I held the phone in my hand for a long time. I waited for it to ring again. It did not. I started noticing things about myself. I was eating less. I was speaking less. I sat near the window most of the day. I watched people passing by. Children running. Mothers calling them home. Old men walking slowly, like me. I wondered if they also felt forgotten. One afternoon, my sister went out. I was alone in the house. I found myself talking to the walls. Not loudly, just in my mind. I asked questions no one could answer. Did I do something wrong? Was I too strict? Was I too quiet? No reply came. Memories began to return. Not the happy ones first. The small arguments. The moments when my daughter-in-law sighed when I entered the room. The way my son avoided sitting beside me. I remembered one evening clearly. I had asked my son, "Are you happy?" He looked surprised. Then uncomfortable. "Yes, Baba," he said. "Why do you ask?"
I smiled then.
But now I understood. That smile had closed a door. After 2 weeks, my wife came to see me. She looked thinner.
Tired.
She hugged me, but her arms felt weak, as if she was holding back something. We sat together quietly. "How are you?" I asked. "I am fine," she replied. That word again. I waited. I hoped she would say more. She did not. So I asked gently, "Why did they send me away?" She looked down at her hands. She rubbed her fingers together.
"It is complicated," she said.
That hurt more than anger would have. Complicated meant hidden, that I did not push her. I loved her too much for that. But that night, I could not sleep. I realized something painful. Everyone knew something except me. And they all believed I was too weak to hear it. A few days later, I went back to my house alone, just to pick up some clothes. No one was home. The house felt strange. Familiar, yet distant. My slippers were not where I left them. My photos were moved to a shelf in the corner. I stood in the living room. I felt like a guest in my own life. I went to the bedroom. The cupboard was open. Inside, I saw files, documents, letters. My name was on many of them. My hands shook as I touched the papers. They talked about property, about signatures, about decisions. Decisions made without me. Suddenly, I heard the door open. My heart raced. My son stood there. "Baba," he said, surprised. I looked at him. Really looked at him. "Why are there papers with my name?" I asked calmly. He froze. For a moment, I thought he would tell me everything. But then he said, "We'll talk later." Later. That word felt like a wall. He gently took the files from my hands, just like his wife had taken the envelope. Please don't worry, he said. Worry had already become my companion. That evening, my daughter-in-law came home early. She looked nervous when she saw me. She spoke softly but firmly. You should not come without telling us, she said. I nodded. Even then, I left before nightfall. I did not argue. I did not shout. But something inside me began to change. Not into anger. Into clarity. I realized silence was no longer protecting me. It was slowly erasing me. That night, I made a decision. A small one. I would start listening carefully, watching closely. If they were hiding the truth, I would understand it myself. A week later, a letter arrived at my sister's house. It was from the bank, addressed to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were details of an account I did not remember opening. Large amounts, transfers, signatures. My signature, but not written by me. The room felt heavy. The air felt thick. I sat down slowly. In that moment I knew the truth was not just hidden. It was dangerous. And it involved my own family. I folded the letter carefully. I placed it back inside the envelope. I did not cry. Not yet. Because the heart needs time to accept betrayal. I did not show the bank letter to anyone. Not to my sister. Not to my wife. I kept it folded inside my bag. Close to me. Like a secret I was afraid to open fully. Every time I touched that bag, my heart became heavy. I kept asking myself one question. Why will my family do this? I had trusted them with everything. I started paying attention to small details. Things I had ignored before. I remembered how my son used to bring papers home late at night. How he asked me to sign some documents quickly. Just routine, Baba, he had said. Office work. I signed without reading. Because he was my son. Because I never imagined my own blood would use my trust against me. My wife came to see me again after a few days. She brought homemade food. My favorite dishes. She tried to smile. We ate quietly. Then I asked her something very simple. Do you know about the bank account? Her spoon stopped midair. She did not look at me. That silence was my answer. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. Tears filled her eyes. But she did not let them fall. They said it was for our future, she replied. They said you would not understand. Those words hurt deeply. I had worked my whole life. I had handled money. I had made hard choices. Yet they believed I was too weak to understand my own future. I did not raise my voice. I never did. I just said, you should have trusted me. She nodded slowly. I was scared, she whispered. I knew then that fear lived in all of them. Fear of responsibility. Fear of honesty. After she left, I sat alone for a long time. I felt tired. Not in my body, but in my soul. I realized that betrayal does not always come with loud words. Sometimes it comes wrapped in concern. One evening, my son called again. Baba, we need to talk, he said. His voice was serious. He asked me to come home the next day. I agreed. I did not sleep that night. I kept thinking of all the possible truths, each one heavier than the last. When I reached my house, everything looked too neat. My daughter-in-law offered me water. My son asked me to sit. My wife stood near the door. They all looked prepared. That scared me. My son spoke first. He talked about responsibilities, about modern life, about expenses. I listened quietly. Then he said the words I will never forget. We used your name to take a loan. The room became silent. I felt my chest tighten. How much? I asked calmly. He told me the amount. It was more than I had ever borrowed in my life. For what? I asked. My daughter-in-law answered this time. For business. Business. I had never agreed to any business. I had never even been asked. We were planning to tell you later, my son said. When things improved. Later. Again. I understood then. Later meant never. What if something went wrong? I asked. No one replied. That silence confirmed my fear. Something had already gone wrong. They explained how the business failed, how payments were pending, how the bank was calling. They needed time. They needed patience. They needed me to stay away. So the bank doesn't pressure you, they said. That was the reason they sent me away.
To protect themselves.
I felt a deep sadness settle inside me. Not anger, not hatred, just disappointment. I had raised my son to be honest, and now he was hiding behind excuses. I asked one final question. Why didn't you tell me the truth? My son looked down. You would have said no, he replied. He was right. I would have said no. And that was exactly why they hid it from me. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. I need time, I said. No one stopped me. That hurt too. As I walked out, I felt older than my years. Not because of age, but because trust had been broken. Outside, the sky was cloudy. The air felt heavy. I stood there for a moment. I breathed deeply. I told myself something important. This truth was painful, but it was also freeing. Because now I finally knew. I went back to my sister's house. I did not speak much. I sat near the window again, but this time I was not confused. I was clear. That night, I made another decision. A harder one. I would stop being silent. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with honesty. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Just like I always used to. The house was quiet. My sister was still asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. My feet touched the floor, but my mind was far away. For the first time in many years, I did not rush to make tea. I did not hurry into the day. I sat with my thoughts. I realized something important that morning. All my life, I had been strong for others. For my wife. For my son. For my family. But I had never been strong for myself. I believed love meant sacrifice. I believed silence meant peace. Now I understood. Silence had only made it easier for others to decide my life without me. I took out the bank letter again. I read it slowly this time. Every line felt heavy. Every number felt sharp. But fear no longer controlled me. I felt something else instead.
Clarity.
After breakfast, I told my sister everything. Not in one breath.
Slowly.
She listened without interrupting. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. They had no right, she said quietly. I shook my head gently. They had no courage, I replied. That afternoon, I went to the bank alone. The building was cold and bright. People moved quickly around me. I felt small there.
Old.
But I stood straight. I spoke clearly. I asked questions. I listened carefully. For the first time, I was part of the conversation about my own life. The bank manager explained everything. The loan. The missed payments. The risk. He looked surprised when I told him I did not know. I signed nothing that day, but I learned everything. And knowledge has a strange power. It removes fear. When I came home, my phone was full of missed calls. From my son. From my wife. I did not answer immediately. Not to punish them, but to breathe. I needed to think. That evening, I finally called my son back.
We need to talk again, I said. My voice was calm.
Firm. There was a pause on the other side. Okay, Baba, he replied that we met the next day. Not at home. At a small tea shop near the road. Neutral ground. I arrived early. I sat down slowly. When my son came, he looked nervous. Older than I remembered. Guilt does that to people.
We ordered tea.
Steam rose between us. For a moment, we just sat there. Then I spoke. I went to the bank, I said. His eyes widened slightly. I continued before he could speak. I know everything now. He looked down. His shoulders dropped. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. That sentence felt empty. I know, I replied. But you did. I told him how it felt. To be sent away. To be kept in the dark. I did not shout. I did not accuse. I just spoke the truth. And truth does not need volume. He listened quietly. When I finished, his eyes were wet.
I was scared, he said.
I thought I could fix everything before you found out. I nodded. I was scared too, I said. But I trusted you. That trust was the real loss. Then I said something I had never said before. I will not sign anything again without knowing.
He nodded.
I will not take responsibility for decisions I did not make. He nodded again. And I will not live like a burden in my own family. That made him look up. That was the turning point. Not the bank. Not the money. But that sentence. He apologized. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just honestly. I forgot you were still strong, he said. I smiled sadly. I forgot too, I replied. That night, I went back to my sister's house. But something inside me felt lighter. Not healed, but awake. A few days later, my wife came again. She looked at me differently this time. Not with pity. Not with fear. With respect. I should have spoken, she said softly. Yes, I replied. That was all. Sometimes one word is enough. We sat together quietly.
No hiding. No pretending.
I told her my decision. I would help, but only honestly. Only with clear limits. And only if everyone spoke the truth. She agreed. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in months. I dreamed of nothing, and that felt peaceful. I knew the hardest part was not over. But I also knew something important. I had found my voice again. And once you find it, you never fully lose it again. The days after that conversation moved slowly. Not heavy like before. Just careful. Like everyone was learning how to walk again. I stayed at my sister's house for a while longer. Not because I was asked to,
but because I chose to.
For the first time, that choice mattered to me. My son called every evening. Not long calls. Just enough. How was your day? Did you eat? Simple words. But they sounded different now. They carried effort. One afternoon, he came to see me alone.
No explanations. No excuses.
He just sat beside me. I feel ashamed, he said quietly. I looked at him for a long time. I saw the child I once held, and the man he had become. Shame can change you, I said, if you let it. He told me everything. How the business idea started small. How confidence turned into pressure. How lies felt easier than truth. I listened without interrupting. I realized something then. Fear had made him forget who he was. Just like silence had made me forget who I was. We went to the bank together the next week. Side by side. I asked questions. He answered honestly. We spoke to the manager again. New plans were discussed. Clear responsibilities were written down. Nothing was easy, but nothing was hidden anymore. That made all the difference. When I finally returned home, the house felt different. Not warmer. Not happier. Just honest. My chair was back in its place. My slippers were where I liked them. Small things. But they mattered.
My daughter-in-law spoke, less at first.
She watched me carefully. One evening, she came into the kitchen while I was making tea. I'm sorry, she said. No long speech. No reasons. I nodded. I know, I replied. Forgiveness does not always need words. At dinner, we sat together again. Not like before, but not distant either. Conversations were simple, careful, but real. Some nights I still felt sad. Trust does not return quickly. It walks back slowly, step by step. I allowed myself that time. I stopped pretending everything was fine. And strangely, that made things better. My wife and I talked more. Late at night, in low voices. We spoke about fear, about mistakes, about how love sometimes makes us quiet when we should speak. We promised each other something simple. No more secrets. Weeks passed. The pressure from the bank reduced. Payments began again. Life did not become perfect, but it became stable. And stability felt like peace. One evening, my son said something that stayed with me. I didn't know you still needed respect, he said. I smiled gently. Everyone does, I replied. Age does not remove that need. I started going for morning walks again. I felt the sun on my face. I breathed deeply. I felt present. Not invisible. Sometimes I still remember the day I was asked to leave. The quiet voice. The gentle door closing. It still hurts. but it no longer defines me. I learned something important through all of this. Being calm does not mean being silent. Being kind does not mean being weak. And love does not survive on hiding the truth. I sit at the dining table now. With my family. We eat. We talk. We pause. And that is enough. Life did not suddenly become bright after everything settled. It became quiet. A different kind of quiet. Not the silence that hides things, but the silence that feels honest. I learned to live inside that quiet. Some mornings, I still wake up early. I sit by the window with my tea. The world outside moves slowly. I watch people begin their day. I breathe. I remind myself that I am still here. My family and I are not perfect. We still make mistakes. We still avoid difficult conversations sometimes. But now, when something feels heavy, I speak. Not loudly. Not with anger. Just with truth. My son listens differently now. Not like a child listening to a parent, but like one human listening to another. That change means more to me than any apology. My wife sits beside me in the evenings. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. But we are no longer afraid of silence. Because silence is no longer hiding anything. I think often about other fathers, other mothers, other people who give everything quietly. I wonder how many of them feel invisible. How many of them believe love means saying nothing. If this story has taught me anything, it is this. You can be gentle and still stand firm. You can love deeply and still protect yourself. And you can forgive without forgetting your worth. I do not blame my family anymore. Blame keeps the heart heavy. I choose understanding instead. Understanding does not erase pain, but it gives pain a place to rest. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the door that closed behind me that day. I remember how small I felt. And then I look at myself now. I see someone who learned to speak. If you are listening to this, and you feel unheard, or pushed aside, or quietly replaced, please remember this. Your voice still matters. Your presence still matters. And it is never too late to be seen. Families are built on love. But love cannot survive without honesty. If we hide the truth to protect each other, we may only end up hurting more. I am still a father. I am still a husband. But I am also myself again. And that is enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If it stayed with you, if it made you pause, then it was worth telling.